Okay. Hi.
Hi.
How are we doing today?
I am doing so much better.
Okay.
Something you said at the end of last session, it's like, you're right. You said you're gonna get bored with this healing stuff. And, I've just been thinking like, you are so, it's like, it's right. I've been working to get over this stuff for so many years, and it's like, how long do I want to keep running this? And, you said you run this stuff through your system, it's your identity, and it's like, I'm tired of that. And I guess, I've been doing a lot of tapping myself. I've been working with Madeline on some mom issues and some how I feel about myself issues and stuff, and perfectionist issues. And I've been going back to those memories, and like the animals coming alive and dancing with my siblings, and it's like, I just feel, I've been going to counseling for years for anxiety, for PTSD, for stuff like that. But I feel like going in there and actually connecting with little Lynn and letting her tell her story, and I just feel really, really different. And just you helping me to see, like somehow I always thought mom was powerless at some level, and just, when we tapped on mom, and it's like, I'm Levon, I'm the only person in the world who's powerless. It's just, it became so ridiculous to me. So, and I've just been, by going in with little Lynn and just being with her and kind of making those memories see something different, it's like it's changed something really profound that counseling didn't.
Good.
So, I've still got, I'm not done, but I feel really empowered, because I can go in myself and talk to little Lynn, and now, I know now I have people in the tapping world who, will help me. So,
Fabulous.
I'm doing really good. So.
See, it's great. And just last week, you were like at that place of like, right? It happened so quickly.
Well, I felt empowered in even being able to say to you, look, this session didn't work for me, and this, and just, you heard me, and you stepped back, and you said, okay, we're going to take this slower. And I just felt, that was huge for me too. It's like, and even, with Madeline, we did a memory where my perfectionism and taking on all mom's shit that I've done all my life, and just, I was able to go through a memory, and that piano recital memory, and instead of just being so ashamed, and just, it's like, I went back in there and I played it, the shit out of it, and I had fun with it, and I was like, and it was like, I can do this. I am not weak and powerless like my mom was.
No, you're not.
And just this way of working with it is so different. Mm-hmm. So I am, I'm not done, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm healed, but I'm ready to quit letting be my identity and be my MO in life. So I am very, what?
How old are you?
I'm 59. It's been long enough.
Long enough, right? There's that moment when you just get bored. Yeah, when you're like, you've done enough, and you're like, oh, I'm ready to just move forward now. There's that moment when you go, I'm ready to just stop thinking about it. It's not running through my head every day. And you don't need to like, what happens a lot of times, and just, I don't want to plant anything, but it could happen, okay? I'll tell, because for the classroom, is what happens is it's become such a part of who you are that even though it's done, you kind of force it back, because you don't know who you are if you're not thinking about it and worrying about it and talking about it. And the other thing that'll happen is you still got your counseling sessions lined up. So you're going to go to your counseling sessions because you've been in that pattern for 20 years. And then your friends are they're so used to that being who you are, that your friends will come in with that droopy thing and be like, oh, how are you feeling about your whatever. And then also the support groups. People, with childhood sexual abuse will be in these support groups, right? So they go back and they're still going to their support groups, and because they're still recreating it, they keep it alive.
Right.
But on some level, it's already done. They just haven't figured out yet how to move their life forward in such a way to express that it's done. You don't know how to walk away from that support group without feeling like you're abandoning them, or feeling like, what? Did I do something wrong? Or maybe I should still go to that. I should still go to that. Or your friends don't know yet. Your friends don't know the new you yet, right? And you might end up losing those friends. You might end up losing those friends and having to create new friends, because they will sort of keep you locked in that pattern, right? I'm not saying give up your friends and give up your support groups. I'm just saying that you could consider it if you find yourself sort of inorganically recreating the experiences, right?
Right.
It's one thing if it's kind of already rolling around in your head all the time and you're thinking about blah, 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 blah. It's another thing if you're like, right, yeah, I was abused by my father. Yes, I am, right? So the I am word gets you in trouble too, right? The I am a victim of child abuse, right? Every time you say that, your energy goes right down, right? Every time you say those words, I am a victim of child abuse. And then your eyes droop and your body droops and you become powerless, right? Like one of the things that I think it happens a lot in the cases of sexual experiences that happen when we're children, right? Is that they get there are sexual experiences that are highly traumatic, like highly traumatic experiences. I'm working with a gentleman now who, as a little boy, was having forced sex with another older little boy. And he has responsibility in that, even though at 7 or 8 years of age, we don't think he does, because he kept going back. He went back 8 or 10 times for the same experience because he wanted this little boy to be his friend, right? So until he takes responsibility for that, he remains powerless, right? But in his case, there was trauma. The physical experience of it was traumatizing. So that's one level. But the second thing that happens is, in a lot of these sexual abuse experiences, is the person doesn't have a context within which to experience, within which to categorize it. Okay?
Yeah.
So because you don't have a context within which to categorize it, you don't have the same trauma. It's just an experience, right? So, okay, let's just say you are laying in bed during the night, and I'm not excusing this. I'm only talking context, okay? So you're laying in bed watching TV at night, and your dad puts his hands in places where he shouldn't, and it's enjoyable, right? Because there's no context that says that this is bad yet, right?
Right.
You're cuddling with your dad. This lovely, the intimacy, the experience of safety, even the physical act of orgasm. All those things are not in and of themselves traumatic, right? So then later you get context. Later you get, oh my God, this is what happened to me? And that context is what creates the trauma. Do you see? So the context is,
Yeah.
oh my God, I had sex with my father. I am incestuous. My father is a pedophile. I can never tell anyone. Oh, the shame. Oh, whatever. Now, the context is the traumatic piece. Do you see? I'm not
Yeah.
excusing what happened. Your
Yeah.
father should know better, right? But as a child, to be in that experience, there's a difference between the experience itself being traumatic and the context being traumatic. And in this case, the context is what you've been battling in that situation, I think. Now, when your father was hurtful to you, putting you against the wall and doing whatever it is he did in that situation, that was a traumatic experience, right? Now you could no
Yeah.
longer trust your father. Now there was no context. Now there was no place to be safe. Now your mother was betraying you, right? So, so there was a lot going on in that moment, that the moment itself was traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And so much so that you disassociated with it for all of those years, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just want to put that to the surface, that for a lot of people, the context is the issue, that you enter into what I consider a first chakra belief system, right? And
Yeah.
the first chakra belief system says, this is wrong, you are bad, you should be embarrassed, you should be ashamed, oh my God, right? And that becomes the
Right.
battle,
Right.
right? So now
Right.
in many communities, cousins marry, right? I don't know of any communities where fathers and daughters marry, and I'm quite happy for that. But in some communities, cousins marry, right? And in a situation like that, if you were to play doctor with your cousin as a child, it would be considered in a very different context than if you live in a community where, oh my God, he's your cousin, right? If you had that sexual experience with your cousin, it would be in a completely different social context. And therefore, your interpretations are not just your interpretations, now they're the interpretations of the entire society. See? I think I'm saying this for others' benefit more than for yourself. But now I'm trying to remember how we got here, like what you said that took me to this place. But I think a lot of I think a lot of what you're battling
Just the
is
context.
context.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely that. And that's the only memory I have up in the basement of him physically hurting me.
Right.
But I believe, I mean, I watched and listened to him hurt my mother a lot.
Right.
I mean, he physically hit her, beat her up, pulled knives on her, put cigarette out in her face. And as I watched that, and then here this same monster is cuddling with me, I mean, that, so even though the sexual content, I think you're right. I put this cultural, but the violence that was behind it is what's caused or what's,
Right.
I was just frightened all the time.
Right.
Of the guy.
I get that. The other thing that
So
you said.
I mixed this sex and violence together. I mixed the sex and the violence together. Even though I didn't personally experience it a whole lot, it was still there.
Intertwined. Sex and violence and intimacy as well were all combined, because your father was the supplier of intimacy. And I remember last week you said about how jealous you were when he switched gears and went to your sister, right?
Right.
So that's another indication of the quality of the intimacy and how confusing that can be, right? And even now, when you think about that intimacy with your father, you probably have all kinds of confusion, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because on one level, on the personal level, just me in a room having this experience without the context, without the social context, right? Me in a room cuddling with this man who I love, who is making me feel special and safe and blah, blah, blah. And, okay, this other thing, right? That's a really it can be a really, I don't want to call it a wonderful experience because I know that's going to trigger some people, but it's a very, if you take it out of the other context, for a little girl who's just laying there and cuddling with her daddy, feeling all those wonderful things, and then finding out, oh shit, oh my God, that was so wrong, right? So then you can't even trust you can't even trust your own stuff. So it gets confused with the intimacy issues. It gets confused with context, and it gets confused with, in your case, the violence at the same time. So there's a lot of things that have to be sort of pulled out and looked at individually for you to really get past all of this. But a lot of what has to happen is you have to forgive yourself for enjoying those moments.
Yeah.
And the other thing you have to do is you have to separate that from social context, because for you to get beyond it, you cannot see yourself as a victim anymore. You have to see yourself as someone who participated in this on some level, and that you did not lose your power in that environment. Because in the cases of sexual trauma, the thing that happens is people give away their power and they turn into victims. So victims and perfectionists, victims and perfectionists, victims and perfectionists. You see it over and over and over again in these situations, and those are not your friend, right? But those are the natural response to what happened. Oh, I didn't do it, right? Like when you're a little girl, I didn't do it, right?
Yeah.
You can get to blame someone else, and in that blaming, you take on the role of victim. It's a natural consequence of this experience. I've seen it a million times in my practice, right? So just recognize that that's what happened, okay? Because I couldn't take responsibility for being in that room. I couldn't take responsibility for my role in it, whatever that role was, you know? You know, and again, we have to do this in such a way as that there's not blame, right? Like if you sit there and you think, okay, I should have bit his penis off, right? Or whatever. Then you put yourself into the role of blame. Oh, I should have, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Okay, therefore, I'm guilty, right?
Right.
And so I'm not trying to place blame. There's a difference between blame and responsibility, right? And it's hard for people to think, oh, I had some responsibility in that. But until you can take that responsibility and not only lay blame on the other person, oh, look at what happened to me, you never get your power back. And when you get your power back, it's like a whole new world out here.
Yeah.
It's why I had you do the affirmation with tolerance, compassion, love, understanding, and gratitude. I now forgive, I now forgive, I now forgive, and I call my power back into my body.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I know I'm all over the place with this, but yeah, the other thing that's really important is not to go into a place of guilt. You know, guilt. Yes, I participated, but am I guilty of anything? You know, and I think that to get to a place where you're not guilty, there's a great value in becoming what I call the objective all-loving observer. So the objective all-loving observer is someone who can see it from an impersonal perspective as to what happened without judgment. So if you can take yourself up a little bit, as if you're watching the experience from below, but not judge it, then you can see, oh, okay, yeah, she could have bit his penis off, but would that have been, is that really a viable option? Probably not. You know?
Yeah.
It's probably not a viable option. She made the best decision she could, and therefore she is forgiven. Right?
Right.
And you leave it at that, so that you're not living in guilt and you're not living in shame anymore. It's just an experience. It's just an experience.
Yeah.
You know? When you can get to a place where it's just an experience. This thing that happened to me. Oh, interesting. Without all of that context. that makes it
Right.
so damning. And the social perspectives that come with it. Oh my God, you were a victim. Oh my God, this terrible thing happened. You poor thing. You poor thing. Puts you right back into victim.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I do have, it's hard for me to think that a 4-year-old little girl, even at some level chose to participate in that. That doesn't sit well with me. And I listened to lesson 9 last night, and it was like, the greatest cause of suffering is its resistance to what is. And so I'm hearing what you're saying. This happened, and blame and judgment and societal and guilt, that's not going to help. That's not going to help at all. So this happened for some reason, or this happened and this happened. I mean,
right. And it happened. I think, listen, I know that people have a lot of trouble with the idea of children being empowered, right? Because we have such little context, and we have such little power, little physical power, right?
Yeah.
I believe, though, that, see, this gets into really touchy territory, and I could piss some people off. I used to have, I had this friend who had a little girl. Her little girl was born with some, she was, I don't know what the situation was, but we can say it was somewhere on the autism spectrum. Okay, there was no diagnosis. I'm not looking for to grant that, but things were not completely as one might hope with this new child. From the time this little girl was able to do anything, she would touch herself. And mommy would try to take her hands away and take her hands away and take her hands away. And it never seemed to work. So then what happened was she started to rock back and forth in her chair, like all the time, giving herself little orgasms all the time. It was very uncomfortable to be around, If you put her in the car seat while you were going somewhere, she was going to rub on herself until she had little orgasms, like on and off the entire, wherever you went, and her parents could do nothing to stop her, right? So there's a lot of like discomfort all the way around. The parents trying to figure out how to change this behavior, whatever. I have another friend who has a son who is 14, who also experiences autism and doesn't have the same social filter, right? The little girl doesn't have a social filter. The older little boy doesn't have a social filter. So he will, given the opportunity, masturbate in public, right? He'll just get the urge, and so she has trouble just taking him out in public, okay? I think that one of the things that we as adults don't like to admit to ourselves, and we don't like to look at, is the fact that children are born as creators. And from the moment they are born, they are creators. From the moment they are born, they have sexual anatomy. From the moment they are born, they have sexual curiosity and sexual reactivity. Okay, I'm trying to think of the right words to put all this without infuriating a lot of people and having the whole world come down at me, right? Because people don't want to look at the fact that children are sexually curious. I know in my case, when I went through my experience, I was curious. When I walked up those stairs, I was curious to see what was going to happen, right? I wasn't particularly enamored with the experience itself, but I was actively participating in that experience, right? And when he came back for another round, I said, I don't think so, right? Fortunately, he responded to that. You see? But the point was that it wasn't until I realized that I actively participated that I got my power back. Before that, I was a victim like everybody else. So recognizing that children are creative, that children are powerful, that children are sexual, those are things we as a society don't want to look at. But when you realize that, it changes the context of this entirely. Are you freaking out right now?
I'm not freaking out. I hear what you're saying, and it feels like there's different levels to this. At the level of, at one level, yeah, we aren't victims. At another level, when a super big and powerful person decides they want to do something to a 4-year-old little girl,
Right.
the 4-year-old little girl is pretty powerless.
Yeah.
And did not at that level, at one level, did not choose that at all.
No.
At one level,
Right.
but I see it on different levels.
Right, and that's a very good response. It's very true. Very true. Yeah. So what does the soul?
And I think I can get my power back without having to say I chose that. That does not sit right with me.
I get
but
it.
I can get my power back because I can trust the universe that it did happen, and the universe, for whatever reason, let it happen, and I'm going to accept that reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say, as a 4-year-old little girl, I chose to have sex with my father. I'm not going to go there. Right. And for me, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And I get that. I completely get it. And I actually think it's accurate as well. Yeah. The 4-year-old, you're right. Can't even argue with the obvious on that. Can't even argue. I think what I'm talking about a lot is in case of what I get are a lot of people who are traumatized because they had sexual experiences with other kids in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different level too, right? Like then, like, oh my God, they had sexual experiences with their siblings, or they had sexual experiences with their cousins or kids in the neighborhood, and then they come back later and they say, oh, he did this, blah, 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 because the social context puts them into place of, I can't take responsibility for that because I can't like myself if I do, right?
But I still think there's a power differential. If the kid or the adult has a huge power differential,
physical power,
and I just, even if it's a perception of power differential,
right,
and that's why
especially in the case of physical power, right? In the case of physical power.
And even authority type power. What if, a teacher and a student, I still see a power differential of, even if there's not a huge age differential, there's a perception of power differential.
Yes, there is.
And
right, there very much
and
is.
I think that plays into sexual abuse for me. That plays into it. And that's why I just can't say as a 4-year-old that I chose this. Way back before I incarnated, I might have chose it way back before I incarnated, but I can't bring it down to the level of actually living it out.
I hear you.
I think there's 2 different levels.
I agree with you completely. And when I hear about these tiny little children that are, it's horrible.
But all that said, Deborah, I am in what you did for me, like I said, in all my other counseling, little Lynn never had the power that she was given in going back into the story, bringing adult Lynn in, giving her different choices. That's very powerful. And And this is where I would like to focus my EFT practice with using this kind of, and, you know, and I've read enough. I know that it's matrix reimprinting is what we were doing. Can I ask you a question on a level of practitioner?
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. It's my landlord. Ray? 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 Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I know matrix reimprinting is like a brand name or whatever. Can we call ourselves that if we've never taken that official training, or, you know, what can we say about what we do if we focus on that, or can we do it?
I refer to it as inner child work.
Okay.
So that I'm not stepping on brand, so that I'm not stepping on branding. You know? Yes, it is matrix reimprinting, and I am not certified yet, and I want to go take the certification. I looked at doing it in South Africa this month, but I just couldn't put together the couple of grand to make it happen. But yeah, I'm not yet certified, and I'm certainly not certified as a instructor yet. So I just refer to it as inner child work right now and experiment with it my own self.
Right. Okay.
So sorry. Ray? I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Hello? Hi. You need to get left in? Hello? Okay. All right. Be right there. Sorry, my landlord's bringing gas by. I just have to edit this all. I'm probably going to edit this whole section of the class out because I just think it's so controversial anyway. I don't need anybody coming at me with pitchforks. And I completely hear you on this. So can I stop for this right now? And then I'm going to go let my landlord in because he's bringing the gas by. And then I'll call you back in 1 minute.
Okay. All right.